to a very special edition of the India Development Debate right here on ET Now. I'm Supriya Shrinate. It really is election time and quota politics is back in full force. In a clear move to win over the upper caste votes, the Modi government to declare a 10% reservations for those who are economically weaker over and above the job quota that exists for SCSTs and the OBCs. The proposal, which got the green light from the Union Cabinet today, will go to Parliament for a final clearance, at least in the lower house tomorrow. The new law will require constitutional amendment as the government looks to hike the overall ceiling for reservations to 60% from the current 50%. To ensure that the benefits go to the targeted people, the family income ceiling for the beneficiaries has been set at 8 lakh rupees per year, while those who own more than 5 acres of land will be automatically ineligible. While government sources hailed it as a revolutionary step to ensure level playing for the economically handicapped from the upper caste, opposition parties like the Congress have slammed the proposal, calling it cheap electoral politics. Former Finance Minister Yashwant Sinha, who has been a bitter critic of the Modi government, dubbed it as yet another election jhumla ahead of the polls in 2019. The politics of reservations, the timing of it, and how it impacts you and the development process in India is exactly what we're debating right here on the India Development Debate tonight. Let's take this across to a special panel that's joining us right here. Vineet Goenka, member and ex-national co-convener, IT Cell BJP. Adil Singh Boparai, spokesperson of the Congress. Ghanshyam Tiwari, spokesperson of the Samajwadi Party. Sudhindra Bhadoria, member BSP. Swaminathan Iyer, consulting editor. And of course, R. Jagannathan, editorial director for Rajya Magazine. So thank you very much, each one of you, for joining us. And it's only fair, Vineet Goenka, that I start with you because this is a proposal that's coming in from the ruling benches. Is this proposed reservation for the economically backward upper caste a mere political ploy to woo the upper caste? Because there seems to be this disillusionment setting in as far as recent elections are concerned. After all, the unprecedented consolidation in 2014 ensured your victory. In the last 3 years, many things have happened and seems to have hurt the upper caste. One was granting constitutional status to the OBC Commission, offering tactical support for reservations and promotions, amending the SC/ST Act and all of that. Do you believe that has backfired and this is a move to make amends? Mr. Goenka.
No, it has been seen in the last 70 years because of the faulty policies of the previous governments. A major chunk of population was deprived from the benefits of the democracy. And monetary class plays a major role. I see this proposal as to be a non-biased, neutral proposition for religion, caste, gender, capabilities, and also from which family you come from. It is age neutral as well as. There is only one distinction in this, that is the class. If your financials are less than 8 lakh rupees, if you are deprived, if you have not, you have been financially backward. And I think that will cover all the people who were suffering, who were demanding that they should be given some kind of respite, be it be Gujars in Rajasthan, be it be Patels in Gujarat, or be it be Maratha in Maharashtra. All these brothers of ours who were feeling little bit of, not been part of the mainstream democratic process, probably that will be there. This is a perfect example of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. And here, we don't see what is your surname, we don't see what is your religion, we don't see which gender you come from, we don't see which region you come from. It's purely on the basis of if you have not and you need some kind of help from the government, I think that. So this is well awaited, most awaited, and good it has come. And probably this will be the 103rd amendment of the country.
Okay, we will see whether that amendment will happen or not, and when will it happen, and whether it's going to meet legal scrutiny. Those are questions I have for the rest of the panel here. But give me a minute. I'll take this across to Swaminathan Iyer. And Swami, is it out of the backlash of what we saw in the SC/ST Act amendment, the verdict in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, that the BJP is trying to win back the dominant upper caste? I don't blame Vineet Goenka for the take that he gave. It's he belongs to the ruling party. It's his government's directive to go ahead and do this. But if you were so keen on doing something like this, why wait for 4 years and 8 months? And before general elections 2019, allow something as big as this, Swami?
This is narrow vote bank politics, only partially affected by the reverse in the central Indian state elections. Already when you had the earlier Gujarat election, they said we will give a quota for the Patels. In Maharashtra, they say we will give a quota for the Marathas. Now, all these fellows, they know that the Supreme Court will strike this down. But rather than face up to that reality, you play to the gallery by saying the Supreme Court has said that there is a balance between fairness and historical disadvantage, which we will cap at 50%. The total reservations must not exceed 50%. If you exceed it, you are going out against the fundamental constitutional principle that there will be no discrimination on the basis of any of these things, and that discrimination may, however, be allowed for economic and socially backward classes. In this particular case, you are crossing the 50% hurdle, and you are abandoning the socially and educationally backward classes into economically not even disadvantaged, but economically below a particular threshold. I would say on both these grounds it violates the fundamental structure. It remains to be, I mean, there is a constitutional amendment. Let us see whether this will stand judicial scrutiny. Certainly the laws attempted earlier in Gujarat and other places have been struck down. If you amend the constitution itself, will it hold water? I don't know. I would say, in my view, it is a wrong thing. It is breaking up India. It's balkanizing India into narrow fragments. This is the kind of thing that should be avoided. I am dismayed it is taking place. I hope the courts will strike it down.
And I think I share your view for a change. I don't usually voice my opinion, but I think on this I do. How much narrower are we going to bring down caste reservations to? It's already a 50% ceiling that's there. You're going to breach it to 60%. But Jaggi, many are calling this a pro-poor step. And it dismays me that some in my tribe, some in media are also calling it a pro-poor step. This is a game changer. Vinita, I will come to you. Don't wave so frivolously. But isn't this a simple move based on cold caste calculation? The dominant upper caste was with the BJP. There was some weaning away. And look what they're doing right now. This is based on cold caste calculation, is it not?
Yeah, of course. As I've always been maintaining, the last 6 months to 9 months before an election is the best time for the worst ideas. And so the BJP is thrown his hat in the ring. If you remember the last 9 months of the UPA, we saw the land bill, which was again an atrocious kind of act, which actually probably slowed down growth for a long time. As far as this bill is concerned, I would actually not be that harsh on it, assuming the intent is real, even if it has a political purpose. One is, maybe, just maybe, for the first time you're creating a segment which is not fully based on caste, even though the primary appeal initially will be to the upper caste who have been miffed with the government. At some point, all reservations should really be dependent not on caste, but class, social, economic class, and those need to be defined. And if this 10% quota, assuming it passes constitutional muster, starts setting a precedent, you should actually start pulling it back to the other quotas and do that. And as far as raising the limit to 60%, let's not forget that Tamil Nadu already has 69%, and all the social progressives say it is such a fantastic thing. It has made Tamil Nadu one of the most progressive states and things like that. So I think the point is, when you already set a precedent and you put it in the 9th schedule so that even the Supreme Court can't look at it, I think it's a bit difficult to argue that the remaining 28 states and the country should not go to that level. So my guess is, unfortunately, it's a Pandora's box. It's going to open a whole lot of new ideas. It's open a can of worms, but let's see what happens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm going to hang on to a line that you said, that this is perhaps the last leg, the last trimester, if I may, is the best time for worst ideas for any political party and any government. But before I go any further, Adil Singh Bopra represents the Congress party here. And Adil, let me remind you that the Narasimha Rao government, headed by the, was a Congress leader, it did try a similar reservation to offset the Mandal Commission. It was eventually nullified by the Supreme Court. Is just another thing, because barring 2014 elections, your party has consistently managed to get over 20% of the upper caste votes. At least that's what data seems to tell us here. What is your stand on the decision? I mean, you can't just get away by calling it a election political stunt. Adil.
Well, Supriya, the Congress party has always stood for the weaker sections of society, and we will certainly support any government policy which provides for reservation for the economically weaker section of society, provided it doesn't tinker with the existing reservation scheme for the SCs, STs and other backward classes. That's an ideal scenario. If all interests, if all sections of society can be balanced, that's certainly an ideal scenario. But what is intriguing in this government proposal is that they come out with such a decision at the 11th hour. After 4 years and 10 months, they remember the poor and the economically weaker sections of society. After demonetization, after a flawed GST, which costed the Indian economy over 2 crore jobs. Today, unemployment rate stands at 7.3%. It's at a 23-month high. The government's own admission on the floor of the parliament is that 24 lakh government jobs are vacant. There seems to be no alacrity demonstrated by the government to fill up these jobs. So unfortunately, this again seems to be a political gimmick by the BJP. Mr. Modi, in the run-up to the 2014 election, spoke about 2 crore jobs. He spoke about providing every Indian citizen with 15 lakh rupees in their bank accounts. I think 2019 template seems to be providing reservations for economically weaker sections of society. And we sincerely hope that the government is mindful of the fact that there is a Supreme Court judgment which caps it at 50%. I think these are issues which the government must address, and it just cannot be a political gimmick on the eve of the elections to deceive the general public. Because if it's a gimmick, then there's going to be a backlash against Mr. Modi, rest assured.
Okay, Adil, give me a minute because I want to really take it across to the politicians on the show. And Ghanshyam Tiwari, the government obviously doesn't have the numbers in the upper house to bring about a constitutional amendment. Is it really relying on the fact that no politician would risk opposing the move?
Well, we believe that the government does not have a good intent. Its intent does not last beyond a screaming political headline that can be turned into rhetoric on election pitches. Because today the government has no idea of what is the basis of this 10%. It does not know how many youths with respect to education, the poor upper caste youth who will be impacted, or with respect to jobs. The government is facing the headline that CMI reported about the number of jobs, roughly 1 crore jobs that were lost in this regime, and 90 lakh rural jobs. So clearly, with respect to the agenda of education and employment, it is not government's priority. But with respect to politics, this is a knee-jerk reaction coming in the backdrop of what happened in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. We believe that government does not have an intent to have a thorough discussion on this matter. However, if there is a discussion in Parliament on this matter, we would welcome this discussion. It is important that the agenda of reservation be detoxified. It has to be looked at with respect to new data that is available through Aadhaar and other means, through caste census, about what are the various strands of population that we have, how many opportunities are there, how are those opportunities getting assigned, and who's getting disadvantaged. If there is a data-based discussion to build a thorough policy on this, then we would be active participant in that discussion.
Okay, so look at what the political class is saying. The political class is not opposing it. I think it's a double-edged sword of sorts. But let me take this across to Mr. Bhaduria, who represents the BSP here. And Mr. Bhaduria, the proposed reservation is a double-edged sword, is it not? Because I'm presuming this is bound to fuel fear and add on to insecurities in the minds of SC/STs who already believe that the reservation system, perhaps attempts have been made to alter it. The 50% ceiling is being breached. The question now is there going to be a fresh demand for more changes in the SC/ST Act to ensure the quota is raised for reservation as far as the Dalits are concerned? Are we going to see that vicious cycle now being put into action? Why stop at the upper caste?
You see, there is a contradiction in, well, this is also a sign of nervousness of this government. And this nervousness arises from the decisions that this government is taking in the last 2-3 days, the manner in which the CBI is being used, the manner in which hurriedly these announcements are being made. These are just political acrobatics, nothing more than that. And this will also result like a jhumla, which they have been calling when it was the issue of bringing 15 lakh rupees into the account of all citizens. It was about to provide 2 crore jobs to all young people of this country every year. So on all accounts, the Modi government has failed. Now, on the eve of the poll, they are coming with announcements which they know they cannot implement and will not implement. And I can assure you, you will see it in the days to come. Therefore, this government is now in nervousness trying to take decisions, and these decisions are not going to move forward. They will not carry through, and they are doing it for political motives. This intent is very clear, that the people have shown in the last few months, whether there were by-elections in UP or in Karnataka, the assembly elections, everywhere the BJP has been routed.
Okay, Mr.
Any
Bhadoria.
such effort now is the
Mr.
last moment effort which will not carry them through.
Okay, Mr. Bhadoria, I will take the point that you made about a last-minute effort being made only for elections. Vineet Goenka, you know fully well that 50% quota being breached will get tangled in legal battle, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. The fact that both the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha obviously can't pass this bill in the winter session is also a foregone conclusion. Having said all of that, and you don't have the numbers in the Rajya Sabha, has the government basically floated a balloon to make it an election talking point and then eventually blame it on courts if it doesn't work out? Or on the opposition, perhaps?
See, now, what you said, what you talked is the real crux of the democracy. When you are in democracy and you are representing the people, what you do is you put in the efforts which are good for the people. We have put the first best foot where we have identified those people who are suffering because they are less than 8 lakh rupees per annum income, irrespective of their caste, creed, gender, age or their religion. Now here I'm very sure all those progressive parties, all those parties who believe in real development will support this particular bill. If a party opposes this particular bill, then they are exposed. That means they are not with the poor. They are showing their back. I personally believe poverty is a great equalizer. Poverty does not ask you what is your religion. Poverty does not ask you what is your caste, or poverty does not ask you what is your gender. I think it is our duty to help people who are marginalized, and that may be the reason why Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar talked about reservation that time. You know, probably one of the reasons who were socially isolated were also economically isolated. But today we see one thing: people may not be socially isolated, but they are economically isolated. And economic isolation is also equally the same pain like a social isolation. So probably this is a good equalizer. This has been identified. Why talk about in isolation Jat, some Gujar or Maratha or Baniyas, Marwadis, Gujaratis, Muslims, Hindus? Let us identify them by class. Those who are poor, those who have financial difficulty, they should be helped. And I think this is duty of the government.
Right.
And government has put this forward. And those who oppose this particular bill, they have to go and face the people. See, in the entire debate, Supriya, I am not talking about voters and this, because that is not our focus. Our focus is development. Our focus is benefit of this country.
Vineet Goenka, give me a minute. Yeah. I just wish that focus had come a little before, not after 4 years and 8 months. That is where your action is suspect. But let me take this across to Swami. And Swami, let's assume this is going to be tabled in Parliament. Let's assume it's going to be taken up for discussion. Look at the criteria that has been put. 8 lakh rupees has to be, you have to be at an annual income of less than 8 lakh rupees. If you're actually earning 8 lakh rupees, you are richer than over 70.42% of Indians. 70% of Indians earn less than 8 lakh rupees. Only 10.75% Indians are richer than you. So, I mean, you know, forget about the debate, forget about the moral compass and all of that. But, you know, the first thing, the category for this reservation, doesn't that need to be lowered to begin with?
I would say on this ground alone, it will be struck down by the courts. It is so absurdly high that you cannot be called economically backward. I mean, we have a situation where I think, you know, this is about 5 or 6 times the per capita income. You have an income tax exemption limit of 2.5, and this is so way above even that. So, I mean, when you look at it, you say, why is the bar so high? The answer is very clear. The bar is high so that as many possible voters as possible will be potential beneficiaries. So, this is not an attempt to help the poor. This is an attempt to give the BJP the chance of fooling some upper caste voters into thinking that, you know, you have a chance of a quota, when in fact it's most likely to be struck down by the courts. It's in principle it's a bad ploy. Practically, I do not think it works. But this is the kind of thing I think you will expect in the run-up to the general election. And I would agree with Jaggi, if it's the season for bad ideas, this may be the first of many more bad ideas.
I think so too. I think we should not just from this side of the political spectrum, but on the other as well. But Jaggi, it actually dismays me to see the criteria. Forget about those earning less than 8 lakhs a year, which is huge. I mean, I know of so many people who are so well-to-do. They earn around 8 to 10 lakh rupees and they live very, very comfortably. The other criteria is your house has to be smaller than 1,000 square feet. You go and buy a property in Bombay and that's going to be smaller than, any 1,000 square feet. Then you've got to have land under 5 acres. 5 acres is a luxury in India. I mean, 38% or I think 40% of India's populace actually works on fields that are less than 2 hectares. 5 acres is a luxury. And given that eligibility criteria, it actually includes almost the entire middle class.
That's big. And where I disagree with Swami is that I don't think the Supreme Court is going to quibble with the upper limit, because I think that's well within the legislative competence of Parliament. Where it will do is, of course, the breach of the 50% ceiling on quotas, which is where I think it will look at constitutional moralities and other things. So as far as the broader possibility, one, I think we need to know, even in this panel, actually all the opposition parties, none of them has actually criticized it. They only said that you can't pull it through, you're not responsible, it is a jhumla. Not one of them has said it is a wrong idea, which means politically the idea is passing muster, and we need to take note of that fact. Whether it passes in this parliament or not is a different issue. But it is a talking point, and not one politician has opposed it on this panel. So let's be clear. And also let's not forget the creamy layer limit, even for SC, ST and OBCs, is pretty high. It is nowhere near the poverty line. So I think this 8 lakh limit is not really the issue that's going to trip this idea. It is the fact that politicians are not going to support it right now.
No, absolutely. Give me a minute, because I want to take this across to the Congress party, and because I agree with you that all politicians are by and large agreeing with that this should be done. Other reservations is like a tiger. When you ride on one, you can't get off for the fear of being gobbled up or eaten up by that beast. No political dispensation. Forget the BJP, but even the Congress will have the courage to review reservations for the creamy layer that was just spoken about. I think Jaggi mentioned it, Swami mentioned it, the SC, ST creamy layer, the second or even the third generation beneficiaries still out of reservations. Already there is so much damage that has been done. There will be no political will or appetite to go ahead and attack. I mean, who will in their right minds go ahead and make amendments there? And now, you willing to be party to more damage? Adil?
Well, Supriya ji, you have to understand the insincerity of this government. It's one thing to moot a proposal, but having said this, there are a series of Supreme Court judgments which say that there has to be quantifiable data, there has to be intelligible differentia, and any reservation policy must be backed up with facts and genuine sense of backwardness or deprivation. Now, it is one thing to in principle support it, and we support it because we genuinely believe that the economically weaker sections of society do need a certain kind of stimulus so that they can perform to their fullest potential. But the insincerity and the deception part comes in where Mr. Modi announces this 2 days before the winter session has to conclude, 3 months before the general elections, and fully knowing that how will he surpass the 50% ceiling limit. Now, Mr. Jaggi spoke about Tamil Nadu and 69%. Let me remind him, in the same case, the Supreme Court said there has to be quantifiable data. So it's important for Mr. Goenka to tell us that is there any data which is going to be persuasive enough for the courts to come to a conclusion that this is something which is legally sustainable. We support this measure, but this cannot be another act of deception. Mr. Modi is the master of deceit. He is the master of deceit.
Are you talking about active deception? No, Adil, 1 second. He is a master of deceit. I asked you a frank question. Will any political dispensation have the courage to review the reservations that are happening in India? I mean, why should the creamy layer of SC/ST? And I am pro-reservation, let me mind you. I am not anti-reservation, unlike a lot of people out there. I am pro-reservation. I think some amount of affirmative action is important. But at what stage can you review it? I mean, this is politically, a political hot potato. Nobody can touch it. Who can review the creamy layer? Who can review the second, third generation beneficiaries and all of that? But give me a minute. I'll take this across to Ghanshyam Tiwari and to Mr. Bhadoria. And Ghanshyam, reservations was always seen as an affirmative action to end social discrimination. I mean, one reason why there were reservations for the SC/STs was because there was social discrimination, and that continued even for the first generation beneficiaries, and which is why the backward castes and SC/ST reservations were perhaps justified for these years. But this is now being used for as a tool for poverty alleviation, and you seem to be all right with it.
Well, we have said that any policy, for example, reservation, it's a massive policy. It affects crores of people, and it is part of the political narrative. In the light of new data, the policy should be made more effective. If that effective means that helping a poor person from any caste or class come up in life because his society or his situation does not allow that educationally or with respect to employment, let's look at it, let's discuss. If it means that the social indicators around the society or the social phenomena around the society puts it backwards, let's look at it and review. We have said that now you have data with respect to caste census, you have data from Aadhaar, and use that data to review what opportunities do we have for the next generation and how are those opportunities getting allocated. But if it is used only as a political headline. In another debate, a BJP spokesperson asked me that, tell me, are you with upper caste Hindus or you are not with upper caste Hindus? If BJP starts saying that now we'll create a caste and class divide where you represent the socially backwards, the Dalits, the marginalized, then we will represent a poor class which is outside this territory. Then it creates a political dialogue which is different from the policy of reservation. The policy of reservation is a positive policy. It is not a tool of propaganda.
Yes. Thankfully, Vineet Goenka has been remarkably patient and remarkably calm and has not got onto the, the other bandwagon of his party, and which is why we keep inviting him all over again and again for our shows, because he brings at least potent points to his defense, to be fair. And he's not talking about the marginalized Hindus and all of that. But very quickly, I'll take this across to Mr. Bhadoria, and then I need to slip into a quick breather. Mr. Bhadoria, has the time come for the 50% cap to be perhaps reviewed, removed, given India's present social reality? I mean, India's population eligible for reservation has far exceeded the ceiling decided in 1992 when the Mandal Commission identified backward castes. It listed, I think, about 3,700 castes. That number is well over 5,000 today. In fact, way back in 2008, I think it crossed 5,000.
Well, that is a serious issue. Well, that is a serious issue and it can be debated upon, but the point is, as we raised it in the beginning, and I want to reiterate that the intention should be clear. Here the intention is not, they just do it as a gimmick, and any gimmick cannot take you very far. And it is in this light that the BJP has not even discussed it within the NDA partners. Forget talking to the other opposition parties. If they were very serious, they would have discussed it, they would have called a round table. We as a party, Bahujan Samaj Party, the Chief Minister Bahan Mayawati ji had written that other poor should be also included in the reservation policy, but it was never taken up. This being done on the eve of the poll raises the doubt that the intentions of the government is not to carry it through, but to just start a debate and then say that put the blame on the others, the opposition, the courts and so on. And therefore, this whole approach has been with a very nefarious design, and that is why it is going to meet a wrong kind of negative kind of outcome.
Right. Okay, give me a minute right now. I'll take a quick question to Vineet Goenka and then we'll move forward and slip into that breather. We were having a conversation with legal experts, and Soli Sarabji was here on the channel, and he said the government will have to establish conditions that warrant reservation of over 50%. The question is there cogent evidence to support what you're proposing?
See, one, let me tell you, in democracy, parliament is supreme, and if there is an amendment by 2/3 majority, then there are two types of amendment. One, which gets 2/3 majority, that is a special majority, and it has been done. Another, which requires a ratification from the state assembly. Now, what it will fall well, I think the legal experts can tell you. One, A. B, one of the panelists said here that only 10 or 15% of the people fall above 8 lakh rupees. that itself says that there is a population which is less than 90% of the population falls under below the income of 8 lakh rupees. What was the original idea? Why did we introduce reservation for anybody, whether it is for caste or whether it is for people with special needs? The idea was, if there is a marginal guy, if there is somebody who is have not, who has been deprived, he should get some kind of stimulus which will help him to come to the next layer. Now there are 90% of the people, which includes already 50% of the population which is getting benefited. So you have to remove that 50% of the people. Now there are 40% of the people who are not more than 8 lakh rupees, and I think this is justified help for them, and let them also grow up. I'll tell you one simple example. In your studio right now, you are there and there may be a person who is handling camera. He may not be getting 8 lakh rupees. Don't you feel his children should come and sit in your place tomorrow after 5 years or 10 years? So I think we all are responsible for that. I would be happy if somebody sitting in front of me who is not earning 8 lakh rupees comes and sits in my place. That will be the real happiness. That will be the day when the democracy will be achieved. So what will all have to come together.
Vineet, don't target my emotional.
Right now, none of the political party.
Vineet Goenka, give me a minute.
I request you to allow me to complete.
Vineet Goenka, give me a minute. Okay.
So none of the political part.
Okay, quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So none of the political parties have a courage to say that, no, we only want a reservation for Muslims, we only want reservation for that. But I think rather than all that, see, this is a very positive stimulus. We all can help our people, our brothers and sisters who are deprived because they are economically backward. Economical backward leads to non-opportunities. I'll give you many of my friends, they were sharper than me.
But that's exactly,
they had
right.
more intelligence
Okay,
than
Vineet,
me.
I'll have to.
But how will you ensure that this passes the test of the Supreme Court?
So I think we'll have to help them out.
No, 1 second. 1 second. No, I think I will have to come in there. I will have to come in there. Vineet Goenka and Adil Singh Bopara, the reality of the situation. 1 second. Okay. Vineet Goenka and Adil Singh Bopara, that's not how we do debates. Please give me a minute. I think the point that we're missing, and don't target my emotional leanings, I would definitely want everybody to be in any position that I have been in, but I think there is something that merit also counts. But give me a minute. I'm going to take a quick breather. We will be back with plenty more because we want to discuss the jobs. Is this going to help? And where are the jobs? What sort of reservations are we talking about? Are there enough government jobs to accommodate so many people who would be aspirants of this reservation? Give me a minute. I'm back in a moment. Please do stay with us. It's so good to be back with you once again on the India development debate. We're going to carry forward with the quota politics, the reservation politics, call it what you may. But let's put the spotlight to where it belongs, the failure of job creation. Swami, let me begin with you. Is this entire effort, entire proposal also a reflection of the lack of jobs, the lack of economic growth, which couldn't create an ecosystem that could have absorbed a lot of people? I mean, there's a reason why they say that growth is this rising tide that lifts all boats.
No, I don't think it's directly connected to that. I mean, everybody would want a growing economy where jobs are growing. Over and above the growth, they would also like a quota. I mean, the two are not mutually exclusive. So, on the other hand, there are various estimates, in fact, of what is happening on the employment front. We are not 100% sure. If you look at the Provident Fund data, they are actually quite encouraging. They do not suggest a shortage of jobs. Certainly, they suggest possibly a substantial improvement in formal jobs, although they keep revising the data, so there is a lot of uncertainty out there. But it is not, you cannot categorically say that formal sector good jobs are in great scarcity. There's some evidence that quite the contrary, that they are in fact galloping upward. So the issue is not lack of jobs. The issue is that over and above this, you want the quota. And whereas you cannot guarantee anybody a high quality job, whether it's your job or my job, you can guarantee a quota. And on that basis, they are hoping to get a large number of votes. I think the BJP is personally reconciled to this being struck down. It is going ahead with it, even being struck down, saying, first of all, I will portray myself as a champion of so many guys in vote banks. I will portray these other guys as being, wimps who don't really have the guts to either say no to me, but are trying to find some way around it. And, therefore, they are not supporting the bill. Why are they not supporting it? So I think this is a political ploy. And some people will call it a brilliant ploy. I think people will see through it. I do not think this will ultimately achieve very much. Just like the attempt to give an extra quota to Marathas or to the Patels, I think that kind of thing will not work. I do not think this thing will work politically either, although conceptually it's clever.
Reading the minds of policymakers there, that let's see if who can this be blamed on. But I will take this across to Jaggi before I move any forward, because Jaggi is the in-house guru on jobs, really. Jaggi, you know, reservations, the debate, everything set aside, are there enough government jobs to really make a difference even with reservation? That's part one of the question. I think part two of the question has to do with the fact that the government has accepted in Parliament that there are 24 lakh vacant posts that have not been filled. What is then the delay?
I think there are two things. I think our jobs problem is really more of a wages problem. Anybody today can get a job, but at suboptimal wages. This is not the wages at which most people want to work. So when you promise government jobs, what you actually promise is a very healthy living wage when comparable job. That's why in UP you saw thousands of people applying for a peon's job, including PhDs. All it actually suggests is that it's a wages problem more than a lack of jobs problem. So that's one thing. Second thing is, while one can be not sure about whether government has to grow, but you see, any time, if you're going to become a 5 trillion economy in, let's say, another 5 to 7 years, by definition, the size of government will grow. There is no economy in the world where the government does not grow when the economy grows. So there is scope for some more jobs, but obviously not on the kind of scales that politicians would want to give. So you will certainly find in a lot of areas like law enforcement, administration, lower level jobs, those kind of things, the jobs will grow. There is no way there is not going to be jobs. Only thing is, the politicians will be promising the moon when actually the scale of job growth in government will not be of the size in which people, large proportions of populations are going to be happy. But it gives them an opening, and to that extent it creates hope. That's what politicians are trying to sell before an election.
Okay, we're going back once again to hope, but hope of a very different kind since 2014. I think Ghanshyam Tiwari wanted to come in on the wage versus the jobs issue as far as this entire debate is concerned. Yes, Ghanshyam.
Well, I think that somewhere our experiences do not match with what Swamiji has said or Jaggi has said. Just today, the global press has reported that in India, for 66,000 jobs, around 19 million people have applied. Last year, there was similar data for Indian Railways, where for every job that the government puts up, at least 200 to 300 people apply. And that's not just government jobs, even in the private sector. So I think that to say that India doesn't have a job problem is somehow overemphasizing one strand of your experience. The reality out there is that at any age group, we have roughly 2 crore people, and we are not the economy is not creating enough opportunities for those people. A lot of them are poorly skilled, poorly educated, and have to ultimately migrate. They do not have assets. They do not come from the upper caste. Now we're talking about upper caste. A lot of assets are in the villages with the upper caste. So there is a problem. The challenge that we in opposition have faced is that this government did not recognize that there is a problem. Till 1st of January, the Prime Minister in his interview did not admit there is a job problem in the country. So I think there is a job problem. The government does not have good ideas to solve it. And in somehow neutralizing that job issue as a political issue, the government is using caste and class as a tool. Reservation is a tool to neutralize that issue.
Okay, very quickly, Mr. Bhadoria, I have a question for you, and this is a direct question. The reservation, is all right, but the limit will now go on to 60%. The question that I think a lot of people, average Indians, will ask is, where is the space for merit? Where is the space for an average Indian who perhaps earns a little over 8 lakhs, who perhaps lives in a house 1100 square feet, who perhaps owns 5.5 acres of land? Where is the space for merit in this system? And it's even worse for states like Tamil Nadu, where the existing quota is 69%. It's going to go up to 79%. Should there be reservations for the general category instead at 21%?
Well, I in the beginning questioned it, and this questioning of mine is not only limited to the Bahujan Samaj Party. Mr. Gadkari, who is a very important leader in the Bahujan Samaj Party and also a cabinet minister, himself, when this question was asked to him in Maharashtra, probably in Nagpur, he said in the context of the Maratha reservation that how can you give there's no job. Where is the reservation going to come from? So it is the BJP, they all know it, that there will be no reservation because of obvious reasons. They are just raising this whole bogey because they do not want to give any reservation, but only want to raise it for just a political gimmick, and that is what sums it up. This whole issue is being summed up because this is just a gimmick and nothing more than that, and you will see it in the coming 2-3 days.
Okay, let me take this across to Adil. And Adil, will this mean an end to the agitation that we've seen across states? Whether it's the Gujars or the Patidars or the Marathas, you know, the angry Rajputs and Brahmins of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar. Will this mean an end to some of the agitation that we've seen?
Supriya ji, Mr. Modi's promises and his proposals are like post-dated checks which invariably bounce on presentation. This has been his conduct for the past 4.5 years, and I see no reason to see a change. Point number one. Point number two, let's not lose sight of the fact that Mr. Modi had promised us 10 crore jobs. He'd promised us 2 crore jobs. So it is legitimate for the Congress party to ask Mr. Goenka today, what happened to that proposal of yours? What happened to your promise of doubling farmers' income? Today, the state of affairs at the HAL is that they don't have money to pay their own employees. And Mr. Gadkari was candid enough in admitting that there are no jobs. So keeping all these facts in mind, this is nothing but a gimmick. We support affirmative action for weaker sections of society in principle, but this has to be legally sustainable. Mr. Modi feels that he can deceive every section of society, he can come up with new promises every year and feel that he can get away with this. I think the BJP is underestimating the intelligence and the enlightenment of the Indian voter, and they are in for a rude awakening in the next 3 months.
Okay, give me a minute because I will take this across to where it really belongs. Vineet Goenka, there have been various agitations in the past 3 years by upper castes, predominantly demanding reservation. Research shows these demands basically stem out from a perception of marginalization, anxiety, no more dominance in the new economy, and the fact that landed communities are ill-prepared for the shift to urbanization, and which is why they hate on livelihood. Now, given this, isn't the government following or actually falling for arm twisting for political needs?
No, in the last 46 minutes of this debate, I would like to tell you, I've been focusing on what is the need of the reservation for the economically backward class and also the benefits of this. And I've been talking about facts and the data. Whereas my two colleagues from BSP and Congress and Samajwadi Party, all the three of them, are trying to remind me that I will not get votes, this will not impact the voters. Well, we have not done with the focus of elections. We have done it for the benefit of the common man. Let me remind them. Last year in 2017, there were new additions of 82 lakh in EPF. Why would somebody enroll in EPF if he has not got a new job? He does only when he gets a job. So 82 lakh, do you want to say that there are fake people who have enrolled themselves in PF? No. So I don't know. They can go and check. And then let me also remind them there is a jump of 5.42 crore new income tax filing. The total income tax jump has happened 71% to 4%. Do you want to say unemployed people will file income tax? So there is a jump, yes. But on the same time, as I said, there is a majority of people who are deprived of the benefits of the democracy. So it is our duty to bring them up. Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. So what we thought is that I have not spoken the last 47 minutes even once that we are trying to target one particular vote or something like that. So let me remind all these three political parties, please talk on merits. Don't always talk about political incentives. They are talking about political incentives. They are trying to tell us we will see sand. We see sand. This country will not have good days because this is the only 4 years which were honest years where we had a daring to put in GST, bring every taxes under one, subsuming 17 taxes. Do you want to say it requires courage? This cannot be done by some baby doll who is a middle school dropout and comes and does not understand the economics of this country. Let me also remind that we could do demonetization.
Where are we taking this debate? Vineet Goenka, 1 second. No, I'm sorry. I don't appreciate that language. I will not let you hijack the debate and take it in that direction. I don't appreciate that language. You can use that language on other channels, not on mine. A very pure, simple thing that I'm telling you. I heard you till you took the debate in a direction. I don't want you to take it in that direction. Yeah, things in India have only happened in the past 4 years. For the last, 71 years since our independence, we've basically done nothing. That's what the BJP wants us to believe. We are not believing it. Give me a minute and I will take this across to Ghanshyam Tiwari. And Ghanshyam, whatever you may say, this is a very well thought out political strategy. And do you think this decision sends this whole anti-Modi alliance on the back foot? I mean, you and BSP are in talks, Mamata and KCR are in talks, TDP is talking to various people. Given the fact that this could be the potential game changer like many people believe, is there a fear now of losing allies instead of acquiring them? Does this put the anti-Modi bloc politically on the back foot?
Well, not at all. In fact, I think it is a political step that gives BJP a talking point. But does it redesign the opposition alliance? The answer is no, because the people who have crystallized behind opposition are people who believe in farm issues, who speak in simple language that there is a rural distress, it has to be addressed. People who have started following opposition alliances are youth who said that we want to address the job problem, it has to be addressed in plain language rather than flowery propaganda. And finally, there is a natural constituency in the country that has gotten tired of hatred-driven politics. They want harmony. So I believe that the design of opposition alliance is very, very clear and simple. For BJP, it is experimenting, that it has to come up with something like this at in the last 2 days of a session of parliament that is ending, means that it is still in the experiment phase. It is experimenting at all level. There are voices to make Mr. Gadkari the deputy prime minister. So I see multiple experiments for a party which is not confident anymore.
Okay, give me a minute. I'm going to take 2 quick closing comments from both our experts, Jaggi and Swami here. And Jaggi, to you then. Reservations for economically backward upper caste. Has the poll bugle announcing the elections well and truly been sounded? And is this the first of many announcements that we will see in a run-up to 2019? Because I don't believe Vineet Goenka when he says this isn't done with an eye on elections or an eye on politics.
Poll is bound to be seen only in a political setup. So one thing we have established through this conversation, one, no political party is going to oppose it. In fact, all of them are merely saying that the BJP's intent is not good, but not one single person here said is not going to. So this thing will become law at some point. What is equally certain is that this is not going to become law in this Lok Sabha, because you will have to go with constitutional amendment, will have to go through a joint select committee, all those things. It will take some time. So it will happen only in the next Lok Sabha, and whether the next government also brings it at the end of the next term of the office or not, we don't know. But we are going to see some more announcements, especially on the farm front. This is on the jobs front. Now the other deficient area is farms. I would suspect that a package is coming for farms, which may exclude a waiver, but it may include other kinds of things. So yes, it's the season for freebies and announcements. How much of that will actually be implemented before people go to the ballot box is different. But certainly this is the time for an announcement. We're going to see a lot of it.
You certainly seem like we are in the middle of election propaganda already. But Swami, a last word to you then. Given the propensity to veer towards caste-based reservations, the importance of caste, is it foolhardy to imagine that this bane of our society can ever end? Or is caste too potent a tool politically to lose its relevance? And I'm not just talking about the politicians who are out to exploit them, but to voters who don't mind being caste-driven either.
Caste is a reality. You cannot get away from it. We had hoped that, with independence, with the new norms, caste would melt away. The moment you began to get reservations, especially for OBC, we had a reincarnation of caste. Instead of caste being some way of doing down people, it became a way of privileging some people on historical grounds, with more and more guys wanting to get on the bandwagon. That has made India more casteist today than it was 30 years ago, I would argue. And therefore, the idea that, will caste go away? It's not going to go away. So apart from caste, there is region, there is religion. There is the attempt to break up the country into a series of vote banks and say, I am for you, vote for me. There is no vote bank for merit. There is no vote bank for excellence. There is no vote bank for a large number of other desirable things. But there is a vote bank wherever you want to break up society into narrow, narrow walls. I regret to say that is what is happening. I do not see any end to it.
Caste continues to be the most dominant factor of our polity. I so wish it wasn't. I so wish it wasn't the bane of our political and social existence, but it continues to be so. We did put forward questions to people on social media, and I'm startled with some of the results that are flowing in. Is giving 10% reservation to this economically backward upper caste a poll sob before elections 2019? Guess what? 65% people actually say yes. Will giving 10% reservation for economically weaker upper caste yield political dividends? 70% say yes. Is there enough time to get this through both houses of parliament? The verdict is divided there. What will be the mainstay of elections 2019? Rafale say 11%, 29% say caste reservation, 29% say farmer woes, and a majority, that's about 31% here, say it will be jobs. That's what the reality of India right now is as we head into elections 2019. Thank you to this wonderful panel for being with me as we discuss, debate the consequences and what really happens out of this big quota bet that the Modi government is willing to make. Swaminathan Iyer, R. Jagannathan, Mr. Badoria, Ghanshyam Tiwari, Vineet Goenka and Adil Singh Boparai. I can't thank you enough for being with us on this edition of the India Development Debate. We take a quick breather. There's plenty more that you need to follow right here on ET Now.